Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you happen to be listening. I am so excited to welcome to the show today Vonda Copeland. She is the Vice President of Copeland Insurance. Did I get that correct?
Yeah. I can make up a title for whatever it needs. Sometimes it's janitor, but basically I handle the operations, so we're not too corporate.
Awesome. So I met Vonda in Florida. We got to share a little Mexican lunch together on the last day of a little conference down there. So I was so excited to then get to see you in San Diego. And now we get to catch up here. So this is a great chance for me to get to know you a little bit better. So I feel like this podcast has been like almost like a selfish project for me because I get to talk to so many great people and get to know people better. But yeah, so you have Copeland Insurance. You have 9 locations. I assume that keeps you fairly busy trying to manage all of that. So how, what is your insurance story? Like, where did you have you always been insurance? Is this what you've always wanted to do, or how did you land here?
No, definitely not. Not only do we have Copeland Insurance, we also have an MGA program business called Custom Harvest Insurance. So we have 2 separate entities, and we house part of it here in this location, and then we have another location, another town that is just that program business. So between the 2 of them, there's never a lack of anything to do for any day. But I did not start out in insurance. My road to insurance is probably a little bit different than most people's. The insurance agency itself was a family agency. It was my husband's family. Jay's mom and dad went into the business in the 60s. And his dad actually started out as a company rep back in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
And one of the agencies that he was calling on, the guy was retiring. So that's when Jay's folks got into the business. And then Jay went into it after he got out of college. And it started out in a small town of about 400 people. And that's where it was for many, many years. But when Jay came into it, he wanted to really build the commercial. And they didn't really have any commercial markets at the time. So the only reason, or the only really way to develop those markets was to expand. So he started looking at acquisitions back in the 80s. And so they started doing some acquisitions. During this time, I was a teacher.
Okay.
And so that was my profession. And I would get involved on the peripheral as he was making these acquisitions. There would be things to do to make them all go smoothly. So I might jump in and do book work at night until we could find somebody else to take over that piece of that. So as the business grew, I would kind of flip in and out of it on that part of it. And then, then I'd go back out and then I'd come back in. But then in 1999, we had kind of a, rock our world situation happen where my mom was working in a small bank in a town just 6 miles north of where this agency was located. And to make a long story short, in a really bizarre bank robbery attempt, somebody tried to kidnap her to rob a bank, and she ended up getting killed in this process of this. So small town murder. It was just really kind of a crazy time. That didn't happen too often in that area. And there was this series of clues, but nothing that really pointed too far. And it took them 4 years to finally get this whole thing solved. And teaching is not a very flexible profession.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult. I took a short time off. The school district was so great in working with me because I had my dad that I needed to take care of. Had a lot of things going on. Had 2 kids, I think they were 10 and 14 at the time. Different activities and just trying to deal with all the aftermath of what was happening.
Yeah.
And so then about 9 months later, the lady that was doing our book work for our Manhattan location where I'm in now, her husband got pancreatic cancer. And it was stage 4 when they found it. And the only real option for him was to go to MD Anderson to do some clinical trials. So she called me on a Friday, asked me if I could come to her house on Saturday so I could get a crash course on everything up to speed, because back when I was doing the books, I had my awesome green ledger. By this time it was on QuickBooks, things were, going into the technology range. And so I had a 4-hour crash course of, what the statements that were due, and, the accounts receivable and all of that kind of stuff. And so then at the end of that school year, I put in my resignation and went into the agency. It's full time at that point. So it was just too much to juggle with teaching during the day, doing the books at night, trying to take care of my dad, trying to keep up with the kids' activities. It was just a lot. And so it was natural for me just to go ahead and go into the business with Jay. And it's worked. The hardest part was for me to find my place there. It was just, the book work and keeping up on the licensing and I had some sales experience from some other stuff that I had done in real estate, but yet I wasn't really a natural salesperson. So that wasn't really my place. So I found that out pretty quickly that I needed to be more behind the scenes. And so that's how I ended up in operations and the bookkeeping and the licensing and the contracts and things like that. So that's kind of been, and dealing with the employees, creating, the workflows and things like that with the employees.
Yeah.
But I've reinvented myself over and over and over again over the years.
Yeah, which I think is, I think that's what has to happen, right? Yeah. Like you kind of have an idea of how you think everything's going to go, and then life goes on around you and you realize that you have to adapt to it, and you're like, oh, I guess new plans.
And, I think that's one thing that, through that, I'm not as afraid of change as some people are. For me, it's like, I look at something, it's like, well, that's not the worst thing that could happen. I feel like I've already been through some of those things. So for change, I tend to go for it a little bit more, because I know that you can take something and be okay on the other end, even though it's kind of scary. You don't know how it's going to happen.
Right.
I'm not afraid to fail, because I've done that, tried something, it didn't work. So, you put the two together and it works.
So now with your 9 locations, how many employees do you guys have?
We run about 35 to 45 people.
Okay.
So, it kind of fluctuates, especially on the outside sales force, they kind of come and go. But pretty typically we have about 25 inside, 25 to 30 inside people, and then the outside fills out the rest of it. So, so I would say right now, today, we probably have around 45.
Oh, okay. So with everything that's going on, we were talking about this a little bit before we started the podcast, but how have you guys adjusted? What does business look like while it feels like a lot's going into shutdown mode? We're social distancing, we're quarantining, all of that kind of stuff. Like, how has that impacted your agency?
We actually tried to get kind of an early long-term plan going. Because, of course, when we started this, they were just, putting certain things into place. I mean, the shelter at home order didn't come down until, halfway through the process. But we were prepared for that early on. I mean, we prepared in the very beginning with the laptops that we could send home. Some of them were already had that capability anyway. But we basically kind of prepped and said, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and then if this happens, we're going to do this. And because of that, our message really didn't change every time a new order would come out. We would kind of say, okay, this is what we were prepared for, and this is how we're going to handle it. We closed to the public. We streamlined our people of who could be in the office and who couldn't. We already had the technology in place to move people at home if we needed to, and those that we did, we did. When the schools closed, we accommodated the ones that had kids at home that they needed to be there for. So I really feel like It was just kind of slow and steady, and it was constant, which I think was, we weren't always having a knee-jerk reaction like some other people were. We also had a conversation with the staff, and they all wanted to really come to work. If we could manage it, if we felt like we could keep everybody safe and manage. And I think communication was the big thing. We always said, hey, if you have a question, if you have a concern, just, this is what we're going to do. But if you have a concern, bring it to me. We've done self-quarantining with several people over the course of the time. And I think sometimes we err on the side of caution, where where it's not really that big of a deal, but it could be. So we're going to self-quarantine. So that, we've done that. I think they feel very confident that we're prepared. And the one thing that did send us all home was the city shut the water off. They decided to take advantage of all these businesses being closed to do like major renovation on the water lines. And so we had no water. So it was like, okay, everybody take your stuff home tonight, because, and I'd actually told them to have their stuff at home so that if the order came in over the weekend that we didn't know, that, they would be all prepared and, it'd be seamless. But we ended up 2 days at home with everybody working from home. But it wasn't, the coronavirus. It was the city shutting the water off down for maintenance. So, go figure. But it worked. We were already set up, and it was okay.
Well, it's kind of hard to wash your hands for 20 seconds if there's no running water.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
why
an
we
odd
decided
hurdle
everybody needed to work from home. Everybody needed to work from home on that. So.
Oh my gosh. So, but Kansas overall, has it been like, what is the feeling out there in terms of, just, is there a lot of panic in Kansas? Have things been pretty calm and quiet?
We're just, our population is just not to where, I think you've seen the widespread panic. I mean, in the Kansas City area, which we do have an office there, and we've got one person there. So I feel like she's very protected.
Yeah.
But that area has been, pretty serious and seeing a lot of cases. But other than that, I think, especially like where we are right now, there's a lot of people that aren't even paying attention to it. It's almost kind of frustrating. It's like, you try to be so careful, and then you have other people that are, like I said, the grocery stores that are just, people already, going into the grocery stores and things like that. And you're like, really? And I've been doing delivery or not delivery, but, outside pickup for, 4 weeks now. And I hate it because you have to plan like 6 days in advance, and who knows what you're going to need in 6 days, and then everybody else is just walking in. So I don't know. That's why I said out in our area, I'm not really sure if they open it up, how much more we'll even notice where we are.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of people that are out and about anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Living normal life. Yeah. There's certainly varying levels of reaction from people. It's all over the board.
Right. And I think, we carry hand sanitizer with us wherever we go. We have masks if we would need to go in a place, which I personally haven't had to, but if I did, I think I keep going back to the original CDC guidelines, as far as, washing your hands and things like that. And, some of this I think is just common sense that we kind of lose sight of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of been my thought too. Like, what if for the last 12 months, everybody had just been better hand washers? Like, would life look differently? I don't know. I hypothesize that it would, but we'll never really know for sure.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. You won't know if you did the right thing or not, because if it didn't happen, you don't know. So we just have to trust that, we did what we needed to do.
Yeah. So with having employees spread out over 9 locations, that can certainly be a challenging situation. So how do you keep like that team environment when everybody's kind of all over the place geographically?
We really, it's kind of funny because now everybody's going on Zoom and doing all of these things. And we've been doing that, for, several years now, to where we call it our Brady Bunch call, where we're all on the screen. because I think it is important for them to be able to see each other. And so we have those calls. It used to be we had those calls every other week. So that every other Wednesday at 9:00, we would be logging into our CSR Zoom call. And then we have a separate one for agents. And that's not necessarily at a certain time every month. I mean, it used to be, but it's not right now. But we've been doing that for quite a while because they need to be able to see each other. Because it was probably 5-6 years ago, we had an event where I don't know if it was a Christmas party or we had a tailgate for a ball game or something where we brought people together and people started introducing themselves to each other. And it's like, oh my gosh, they don't know each other.
Yeah.
And so we started doing these Zoom calls so that people would have this visual and they can talk to each other. They see each other and it's just more personal. And we have a Google Doc that we all put our agendas, and if they want to add something, they put it on there. And then we talk about that during the call. We make sure we're all doing things the same way. We give advice, things like that. And now since the coronavirus, we've been actually doing them every Wednesday.
Okay.
Just because, when carriers release information on how they're going to handle discounts or credits, things like that, we can, just because we're doing things a lot differently with offices being closed to the public, things like that, that way we can go over information and discuss, like right now, obviously with people not coming in, because we're in community offices, that are really tied into the community, we tend to have a lot of walk-in traffic in some of our offices. Yeah. And obviously that's different. And so we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Right now, we're going to really focus on our renewal calls, make sure our people are touched either by text or phone or email. So we kind of changed our process on, making sure that they can do some of these things during this time. And then yesterday we talked about, let's talk about how we're doing this. And then let's talk about how we're going to keep that process going after this starts to relax. And once we do start to get busier and we do have more walk-ins, how do we still keep that personal touch that we have a little bit more time to do now?
Yeah.
Then. So that's the challenge that some of the things that we're doing now, we like that.
Yeah.
How do we make that sustainable when, the adrenalized stress comes back?
Yeah. When the stuff that maybe you're realizing you didn't enjoy is absent. Yeah. And I think it's interesting to the things that we're learning in terms of like what's missing from our lives and like whether or not we want that thing back in our lives. And looking at it from a business strategy standpoint, that will certainly be interesting. And it'll be interesting, I think, to see if like how long it takes for traffic to pick back up.
Yeah. I think our walk-in traffic will pick up fairly quickly.
Yeah.
It's because people are missing that part and they're going to want to do that anyway. So I think we'll have a lot of walk-in traffic in the beginning, and then it'll taper off. But I don't know. I don't think anybody knows quite how this is all going to affect. I mean, we've been busy. We're very heavily agribusiness. Contractors are still really busy here. Yeah. We have on our program business, all of the work comp renews 4/1. Like all of it does.
Wow.
So we've been like hair on fire busy some days, not having the not knowing what to do with ourselves like I know some other agencies are. So, I mean, we're really, really fortunate. I mean, there's nothing but gratitude here on the fact that we're in an industry that is still moving. We're going to feel the effects, yes, but we've been busy. We've been able to touch our clients and be able to be helpful for them, be a team player in their business.
Yeah.
So we've, there's been some good things happening that's pretty exciting. So considering a lot of the doomsday stories that you see out there. So we're pretty fortunate.
Yeah. And insurance it's an amazing industry all the time, but certainly seeing how it's had to, you pivot and you just figure out, how to do things differently and exist in this new world that we're in right now. So when you look back on your career so far in insurance, what, is there something that sticks out to you as like a huge lesson in just running an agency and doing those things?
Oh man. I think that building the right team, I don't know that I really thought about the culture of the team when I first came into it, because it wasn't my team in the beginning. I was the interloper coming in. So for a lot of those years, I kind of sat back and as much as somebody with my personality can sit back and watch. But there was people that I didn't hire, that I wasn't involved in, them being here. And I think once I was able to get into a role where I could influence those decisions a little bit more, I started paying attention to, the team that you build has to work in a certain way. And there's wrong people to be on your team.
Yeah.
And in the very beginning, well, even over the course of the first 5 or 10 years, there was some wrong things that didn't work. And now I feel like we're moving more towards where we have that culture. Culture is really important to me. I am a no drama person.
Yeah.
And when I hire somebody, I really I get that drama meter out and I really try to pinpoint some drama areas. And if I start to pick up on a drama meter, I'm done with that one. So I finish it politely, but they're going to get a, thank you for popping in. This is the direction we've gone, and it doesn't include you. But that is so important, because you have to have the people that will work together, that will take the drama down and just, however, the trend right now is to find your why. Your team has to know the why. We focus on the how. It's like, how do we make this happen? How do we make this better? That's our focus. That's what we talk about. And I think you get that people. The other thing too that somebody asked the other day was, does your team get incentivized for volunteer work? I'm like, no, because we did that before it was cool. We've been in existence for almost 60 years now, and our people are just naturally drawn to that because that's the people we're drawn to.
Yeah.
We believe heavily in being involved in our communities, and we volunteer, and our employees volunteer, and they just do amazing things. And some of the stuff they've done even through this whole deal has been amazing. One thing in particular was one of our agents that's very involved in the school system, and he helps coach and just does a lot of things. That's kind of his volunteer niche. One of the teachers was having to bag up the students' stuff from, because Kansas, they closed the whole school year very, very early. And so the teachers, like in March, were trying to pack up kids' stuff for the kids. And they weren't sure how they were going to do that. Well, we get those reusable grocery bags.
Mm-hmm.
As we do that with our companies, with co-op. We donated like 750 bags, I think, by the time it was all done. And it was basically one bag for every family, because this stuff out of a desk or a locker just fit perfectly in those. And so he was right there, and he's like, hey, how about this? And so, we were able to do that, and it was just a really cool thing, because, man, one of the teachers sent me a picture, and some school had the kids' stuff taped up in a garbage bag.
Oh.
And they had like all these little square garbage bag packages all over the gym. It looked like a crime scene. I mean, it really did. It was terrible. And so they're like, I'm so glad we didn't have to do that. But if we didn't have those kinds of people in the public looking for those kinds of things, I wouldn't have known it. I wouldn't have known about it. But those are just the kind of, that's what we try to put together for our team. And I feel like we've got a great team. They're usually pretty flexible. They roll with the punches, and they're my family. So,
yeah. So and I think amazing things happen when you have those people that are looking for the opportunities to do something that's beyond meeting their own needs.
Right. And I was not quick enough to think about that in the beginning. And we kept people on that shouldn't have been, that were just toxic. It takes one or two to, just mess it up for everybody. So now we're kind of a lot quicker to try to pick the right people, and then also realize when they're not the right person, you got to fish or cut bait. And cutting bait's hard, but you got to do it.
Yeah. 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 It requires I think it more intention than you ever thought you were going to have to exercise on certain things in your life. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. I think that you're in a, I don't think you're in a, you're different from a lot of organizations in that there wasn't a focus on culture for a long time.
Right.
And now it's I think everybody is understanding how when you get that right, everything else comes together exactly the way that it's supposed to. And so I think it's great to hear how you guys have managed to just take teams that are geographically very separated and now even more separated and pull everybody together and keep that consistency so that whether you're in that office with, a specific team or somebody else, everybody feels like they're part of the same group. So, yeah. And it can be hard, but when you feel like family, it does feel like a family. My whole family doesn't live with me. We're scattered all over the place.
It does. And, sometimes you have those hard conversations with the agents or the CSR staff, and you're like, okay, I'm having the mom talk right now. This is mom talking.
Yeah.
And, you couldn't do that in every organization.
Right.
So, but that's, those are what we do. So
yeah,
some of them, they're like our kids. So,
oh yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what happens. I remember having a work mom.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the best thing that I could have had. I could ask her an insurance question, or I could be like, hey, this is what's going on. I just need you to be my sounding board on this other non-work issue. So yeah, I think it's building that family, I think is an amazing thing, and it probably creates that you're able to retain your good employees.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's fun. So who has had a major impact on your life, whether your career or just other things in your life?
I really, first of all, my mom. I was extremely close to her. And most people are close to their mom, but we did everything together. We did church activities together. We did volunteer activities together. We went shopping together. We watched TV shows together,
Mm-hmm.
over the phone. But I was 36 when I lost her, which I felt like was very young. To be losing your mom. We all have to go through it, but it just sucks to have to do it earlier than you planned. But she was just a phenomenal individual. Unfortunately, you realize that so much more when they're not there. But she definitely had a servant's heart. She would have given somebody the shirt off her back. She was always watching for ways to help. Always, watching the people around her. And she always used to tell me that, not everybody's cut from the same cloth. Not everybody had but she would tell me, not everybody had the upbringing that you did. They didn't have that advantage. And so that has definitely made me think about different things after she was gone, how I looked at things. And so that definitely every day I have her behind me. And so for sure her. I also had some teachers that I worked with, one in particular that I actually had as a teacher. And then I taught with her, and she taught me a lot too. And again, she was no nonsense, no drama too. I think that's where I got it from. But she was amazing. And actually my son had her too. It was amazing. And I actually requested her for him because I thought they'd be a great match. But I think I probably rely a lot on her, things that she used to tell me. 30 years ago, she was telling me, read that note before you give it to somebody. So sometimes I'll do an email and I'm like, maybe I'll just sit on this one for 24 hours, just like, she would have told me to do. So
yeah.
So probably, had a lot of really, really strong women that were
Yeah.
great role models for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So, just thinking about that and creating a space for more female leaders in the insurance industry. And we're seeing the tide change, but is there anything that comes to mind when you think about what more could be done in order to continue pushing that along? Because I think it's important, but I'm always interested to hear what people think of, like, what can we do?
Well, sometimes insurance still feels very much like a man's world,
Hmm.
very much so. And I still feel that even in my own agency. Of course, I'm not just me. It's Jay and I together.
Hmm.
But there'll be times when we'll have a retreat for our agents. And about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I tried to introduce them to video, to do video proposals.
Yeah.
And that was when it was just starting to really, you were starting to see it. And I didn't have anybody that was willing to jump on board. But the next retreat, I had two of the agents. I asked them, I said, hey, can you learn how to do this and then teach this at the agent retreat? And they said, we'll have a workshop time in the afternoon where we'll have 2 hours where they'll have to bring their laptops and actually be able to go through this program and be able to do this. And when they did it, then of course it was great. So it's like, so it's still there, but I think there's a lot more visible women, like Lori Toadman at Travelers, Myrna Estrada at Safeco. You have a lot more women in leadership that people can, that women can see.
Yeah.
And then I just think there's a lot more people like your podcast, Teresa Kitchen's podcast. There's a lot more of those that they can see. Oh, wow, these people are making a difference in their agencies. They're making a difference in their communities. They're connected to women that are, doing it successfully. And we're struggling and failing and, trying something different and then readjusting our sails. But, we're still doing it, and they can see that, because I think that women have a hard time sometimes reaching out for help, because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be multitasking, we're supposed to be, everybody's supposed to be able to manage all of this stuff, and like the men do, and we're different. We have a lot more qualities that lend to this very well.
Yeah.
We don't have to be like the men.
Yeah.
We've got our own skills
Yeah.
that work perfectly. So I think they just need to be able to be exposed to that and be able to reach out. They need to be able to talk to somebody that's been through it. We have a local women in business chapter that started up here a few years ago. And I did a seminar last year, I think, on embracing the suck.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Brene Brown.
yeah, it's, I can't believe the people that reached out afterwards that said, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this today. Everybody sits in their own, little world, and they got to get out there and connect and find out if somebody feels the same way they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can help them push through it.
Yeah. We're not on an island. There's
Exactly.
other people. Yeah.
Right.
Even if we feel very isolated right now, we're
Very
not on
much
an
so.
island.
But, my daughter's in insurance on the carrier side.
Okay.
And I see opportunities for her and that wouldn't have, that you hope that she can work through that and move through that. And I think that's our responsibility to that next generation, is to make sure that they have that avenue to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. So if you could go back and give any piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, wow. I think I would have told myself to buckle up. I could have never buckle up. It's going to be a hell of a ride. Yeah. I would have never guessed, if you would have asked me 40 years ago where I would be now. This would not have been I wouldn't even have imagined this.
Yeah.
And so I think I would have just probably told myself back then to embrace the suck and just get through it.
Yeah.
is it's better on the other side. Now I know that, I didn't back then. And so it's just, yes, you just have to keep going. And it's not the end of the world. It's called a bad haircut. It's not the end of the world to grow out.
We're all going to have really bad haircuts by the
time. Yeah. It'll get better. Even though sometimes they seem, there's some really dark times that people can go through. And, you just have to keep pushing through it. And the light at the end of the tunnel is not always an oncoming train. So.
This is true. Thank goodness for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are future plans for you or for the agency? What are you looking forward to?
Well, we are still in growth mode. My husband is he is the ultimate deal put together guy. So I would anticipate that we will still see growth, and before we retire. And so I'll still be relying on my how do we make this work and how do we put it together. So I still see that in the future, but at the same time, I am trying to put some workflows and some things in place that I can maybe not be here as much, because I am half the country away from my 17-month-old granddaughter.
Oh.
That is awful right now, that I cannot get out there and see her. This is the longest I've gone without seeing her. And so I would like to be able to take some time to be a grandma once in a while, more than for sure right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
Zoom calls are not cutting it there.
Not quite the same. I know. And my mom definitely feels the same way with my kids. So you have the one grandchild?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting.
It is exciting. And I'm just, my challenge to myself right now is to figure out how to take some of the peacefulness that I've experienced during the Great Pause, and fit that into what happens next. I don't want to be ruled by my calendar as much as I was before this.
Yeah.
So I need to figure out how to make that happen, because that's my mental level is just, the stress is just a lot better right now than it was before. And so then you realize how really run by your calendar you are.
Yeah.
And I'm not liking what that looked like right now.
Yeah.
So.
It's crazy when you have to step back and look at it, because it's no longer an option. It does. I think
exactly.
A lot of different things become a lot more clear during
situations. They do. Things that I thought were really important, apparently it wasn't. So, that's my challenge to myself for my future is I want a future where I'm taking some more time to not be as stressed and to take care of myself. So.
Yeah. Self-care, critical. I think I hope people are taking better care of themselves now that we're with ourselves a lot more. There's a lot fewer distractions.
I have a little secret in my office, and on a podcast you can't really see it, but on my lamp next to my desk, I have the oxygen mask that you pull down in an airplane.
Yeah.
I actually have one of those hanging, and it's hanging off of my lamp. It looks really terrible. People come in and ask me, "Did you steal that?" I'm like, I did not steal that. You can get anything online nowadays. And but if you think about it, when you're on an airplane, when they're going through their spiel, they always tell you to put that on yourself first, mm-hmm. before you try to help anybody else.
Yeah.
And so that's especially during this whole thing, I realize, I'm more relaxed. I'm able to focus on my team better because I'm not trying to wallow through, my stack of stuff. So I've got to start using that oxygen mask a little more. And, I knew that before, but now it's like, whoa, it's like crystal clear. So,
yeah. It is amazing the clarity we're getting on mm-hmm. so many different things. I feel like daily there's something I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have that thing anymore and I don't miss it.
Right.
This is what I value that I'm really looking forward to having back in my life again. And so I think we'll be able to get better separation of those things and really, make conscious decisions about what we allow back into our environments.
Exactly.
When we actually have the choice on those things.
Yeah.
So I have one more question for you before we wrap up here. But if you got to play DJ for 5 minutes, you can pick any song. What would you play?
Oh man. There's so many to choose from. It would probably have to be something from Billy Joel. And I'm probably going to have to go with, right now, with everything else, This Is My Life with Billy Joel.
There you go. The Piano Man.
Yes.
Well, it's funny because Ash Fitz also chose a Billy Joel song.
Really?
Yes.
That's great. See,
yes.
that might think alike then. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like once we're all together, we're going to be jamming Billy Joel. I feel coming.
I love that. I'm so there. So.
I always think We Didn't Start the Fire is like the perfect insurance song.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of the lyrics make no sense, but the title I feel like works.
Yeah.
Or if you're a fraud investigator.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for letting me have part of your morning.
Oh, thank you.
I will not be back in Manhattan. My sister had a non-graduation and is moving off to a job on the East Coast, but our paths will cross somewhere else, I'm sure.
All right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. And thank you again so much for your time. And
all right. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll catch up again soon.